All right, today we're going to work on computing simple interest. Simple interest is a common way interest is done. Think about all the chances you're going to have interest. You buy a car, you buy a house, you have credit cards. All these things are done based on interest. So we're going to look at interest, simple interest, principal, and rate of interest. So we have a lot of definitions, and we need to understand each part. Interest is the amount of money charged for borrowing or using money. When you deposit money into a savings account, you are paid interest. Simple interest is one type of fee paid for the use of money. So the equation for this is I equals PRT. What I always think about this is IPRT. If you can memorize this equation, it takes care of everything you need. IPRT, IPRT, IPRT. So simple interest is the I, that is the interest earned. That's what we're going to be calculating in most of these problems. P is the principal, is the amount of money borrowed or invested. It is the starting amount, the principal, the main piece. Rate is going to be the rate of interest. This is the percent of change or earned. This is our percent in the problem. And T will be the time. In most cases, it is done in years for the money is borrowed or invested. So in most cases, you'll see that in years. Sometimes you'll hear phrases like half a year or twice a year, and so you need to make adjustments for those. To buy a car, Jessica borrowed $15,000 for 3 years at an annual simple interest rate of 9%. How much interest will she pay if she pays the entire loan off at the end of the 3rd year? What is the total amount that she will repay? So we got two questions here. What is the interest and what is the total amount to be paid? So we need to break this down, and the amount borrowed, that is our principal. The 3 years, well, that's our time, and the percent 9, that is our rate. And so we need to fill those into our equation as we go. So I equals PRT, we can fill in our information. The principal, 15,000, the rate, 0.09, change that percent to a decimal, and times 3 for the 3 years. So multiplying those together, we get interest of $4,050. So that's the interest on top of her principal. So we need to go back and add that to the principal to find out the total amount. So you find the total amount by taking the principal plus the interest. And so the principal was 15,000, the interest was 4,050. So we just add those together, and $19,050 is that. So thinking back what happened, she borrowed money, she collected interest, and we now have our new value that has to be paid. So to buy a laptop computer, Elna borrowed $2,000 for 3 years at annual interest rate of 5%. How much interest rate will she pay the entire loan off at the end of 3rd year? What is the total amount she will repay? So pause the video, try this one out. All right, we're going to resume. Remember, I equals PRT, IPRT, interest, principal, rate, time. So we have our principal, we have our time, then we have our rate. So we put those into our equation, and then we simply multiply, remembering to change that to a decimal instead of a percent. And we get interest of $300. So she borrowed $2,000 for the laptop. She now has to pay the $2,000 and the interest. So we find that total amount by adding those together, principal and interest. So 2,000 plus 300, $2,300. So a $2,000 laptop now became a $2,300 laptop. So we see the effects of interest rates on things. Nancy invested $6,000 in a bond at a yearly rate of 3%. She earned a $450 interest. How long was the money invested? So this case, we're giving different pieces of information. We're still given the principal. we're given the rate, but in this time we have the interest, but we don't have the time. So we fill in all the pieces of information that we know, and then you combine the pieces that work. So we're going to actually multiply this part right here. Notice we're actually filled in the interest this time around. And so I get 450 equals 180. Well, I want to get t by itself. So I isolate, I balance. And to get t by itself, I'm going to divide both sides by 180. And that gives me t equals 2.5. So what does 2.5 mean? 2.5 years, or 2 years and 6 months. We got to be thinking about the type of conversion, because if I have a problem that says 6 months, I need to think half of a year, 0.5 years. TJ invested $4,000 in a bond at a yearly rate of 2%. He earned $200 interest. How long was it? So I want you to solve this problem out, just like we just did. So pause the video. All right, we're going to continue. Once again, I'm given principal, I'm given the rate, and I'm given the interest. So I'm looking for time. So I fill in my piece of information, I multiply what I can. Now I need to get t by itself. So since I'm multiplying by 80, I now divide by 80. 2.5. Once again, I get 2.5 years, or 2.5 years. John's parents deposit $1,000 into savings account as a college fund when he was born. How much will John have in his account after 18 years at a simple interest rate of 3.25%? So, what all piece of information have I been given? I've been given a principal, I've been given a rate, and I've been given time. So I wrote down I, I'm given t. So we fill in the information that we have. And so once again, I'm looking for the interest. I get 585, add that back to my principal. And I got 1,585. Try this one on your own, just like the last one. All right, I've been given principal, time, and interest. So fill in all that, principal, time, and rate. I get 3,750. Add that back to the original, 4,750. Mr. Johnson borrowed $8,000 for 4 years to make his home improvements. If he repaid a total of $10,320, at what interest rate did he borrow? So we're given principal, time. We're given principal, we're given time, and then this was his repaid total. So this was principal plus interest. So to figure out what the interest is, I need to subtract the principal away from that amount. So I take the information given, 10,320. I subtract 8,000 away from that. I get $2,320 is the amount of interest. And so now that I have that, I can fill in the rest of my information. And so now I'm looking for the rate. And so I can kind of rewrite this to where the 4 is being multiplied by the 8,000 and go ahead and fill that in. That gives me 32,000. And then I divide that away. And R equals 2,320 over 32,000. I get 0.725, and I convert that back to a percent, 7.25%, or 7.25%. All right, same thing on this one. I want you to try this one out. All right, to start, a little hint, we're going to take that amount repaid, and we're going to subtract the principal away from it to find the interest. So our interest is 11,000. So I'll fill that piece in with the rest of the information I know. Interest equals principal, rate, time. Now, these aren't touching each other, but they still can be multiplied by each other because the commutative property of multiplication says I can do this in any order. So multiply those. I divide away. R equals 0.12 repeating, so that is 12.2%. And if you put 12.2 repeating percent, that is still acceptable. All right. These are quiz problems to bring into class. Please take your time on these, show as much work as possible. If you have any questions for the next class, please bring those in and ask at the beginning of class. Thank you.